how many times in employees do you get by with that though? It's like, yeah, but he's almost there. He's kind of done it. Like, then who does? The carnivore jumps in and says, F it, move away. I'll finish the job. Like, you know what I mean? Because that's how they think.
Welcome back to the Kris Krohn Show. I'm joined today by Sam Taggart. He has killed it in the door-to-door space. Bro, you even have D2D Con, right? So you're now consulting with hundreds of companies that are all in the door-to-door space. You made a name for yourself there. And bro, we've been in each other's paths for the last few years. I think last year you donated to my foundation, actually at a level where I think you were supposed to fire that 50 cal off the top of my 6x6 rig.
Couldn't make it that day.
We'll have to invite you back out and we'll have some fun for sure.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
Good, man.
So I want to launch in and really talk about your entrepreneurship journey, because you're young, you're successful, you got apps launching, you've got a CRM that you custom built for the D2D space that is coming out. You've got your hands on a lot of different spots. You're selling 6-figure contracts on consulting with companies. You're up to a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So tell me about your world.
Yeah. So mainly the background is D2D experts. That's kind of the primary business, which helps companies scale sales, recruiting, and leadership. Primarily for those that want to take a non-traditional marketing approach, but more so traditional marketing approach, which today would be non-traditional, because, you know, when the internet was invented, all of a sudden everybody's waiting for leads to show up, and they're like, if I can SEO and have a magic funnel, I'll make millions of dollars. But sometimes we negate maybe the traditional standing.
Is there a resurgence right now in companies wanting to market door to door?
Oh, I mean, we've been reached out by Google, Amazon, to like big organizations. Like, for example, fiber's a big one today because they're all leaving fiber, and they're like, okay, how do we go target where these can hit, right? Well, it's like I could do mailers, I could do, you know, and then they'll pay for door-to-door campaigns, you know. So it's like from a lot of home services to even recently we've helped dentists to, you know, stem cell company to landscape painting. I mean, there's so many different industries. I mean, the big ones are solar roofing, pest alarms, kind of those industries. But
so I got hit up in this private equity space by a company that said, Kris, we track your health channel. We have these supplements. We've done, you know, all of this solar door-to-door stuff for years. And he said, I want to go door-to-door on health supplements. And I just want to charge $200-$300 a month. And he said, what do you think? And I said, either this is the smartest idea or the dumbest idea. Like I couldn't figure out which, so I said, do a test for me.
Yeah.
And so he sent a group of people out door to door on a fake product for a week because they hadn't really developed it yet. And I just want to know, could they sell? And in 6 hours, a team of 4 people sold like 21 contracts.
Think of the reoccurring, the RMR, the equity value to that private equity. You know what I mean? Like, and in today's world, traditional marketing, the ad dollar is 30% less. So it's 70 cents on the dollar as it was a year ago. So it's like, if you look at, you know, even realtors, real estate, it's like big boys coming in and economy where it's at, you've got to start getting creative and saying, hey, I'm going straight to the source instead of hoping that they go down this one funnel, drip them, and then they'll call me. It's like, no, I'm going to be a carnivore and go right at it. And like you just did with the supplement, it's really simple. It's anything you sell. It doesn't matter if it's real estate. It doesn't matter if it's supplements. It doesn't matter if it's those cool trinkets on your back thing. It's, do you have a prospect? Can you create a value? Can you overcome objections? And can you close?
Well, if it's door to door, you have unlimited prospects.
Yes.
Right? You've solved for one of the biggest problems that people often just can't figure out. It's like, I need more prospects. It's like
there's neighborhoods full of them.
Yeah. I got 300 million people.
Yes. And now can I get an army of ninjas to go freaking ham on that neighborhood or those towns? And like, take the supplement thing. It's like, think of how many people care about health or should care about health. And if you just said, hey, we're going to do a customized health plan, we're going to do an assessment, and then we're going to make a proposal on what you should be taking. And all of a sudden they're like, sure. And it's like, if you care about your health, this might make sense. And like, nobody knocks their door for that.
Yeah.
And are they going to look at some Facebook ad? They're probably seen a million Facebook ads and never click it. But all of a sudden you give them a real solution to a problem that they're probably dealing with. Now what?
Yeah. So your career has been shifting over the last several years, because at one point you were deep in the door-to-door space. You worked for Vivint. I think you were their number one in selling alarms one year. Is that right?
Yep.
400 units. Uh-huh. And just curious, like back then, at the start of your journey, what kind of money does that make a kid doing summer sales?
Yeah, so like in 4 or 5 months, I'd make a little over probably $550,000, $600,000.
So I have over $500,000.
Yeah, And when you're 23, 24, making $500,000, that's kind of fun in 4 or 5 months, and then go to Bali for a couple months and hang out. I mean, what's crazy even today, like I look at the commissions today than it was when I was in it. Like I know guys making $1 million knocking on doors. And, in today's world, a lot of people might look at a door-to-door salesperson as like, oh, they're the bottom of the barrel. They're like, oh, couldn't get a normal job. And I'm over here like, well, what is a normal job? Like, I'm like, I don't want a normal job.
Dude, Todd Peterson was my neighbor. And the last time, I built a house he built a house in my neighborhood, I guess we could say. And there was several of his top reps that were living in these $1 million plus homes. And that's when I thought, I don't think I understand door to door. They're definitely not bottom feeders.
Yeah. Like
they're kind of sitting high on the horse.
It's the guys that can last. I think it's Todd Peterson's quote, 99% of people don't do that or wouldn't do this job because they can't. Like they're afraid of rejection. They don't have the grit and resilience. And it's that 1% that can stick through getting their face kicked in 88 times and then getting 10 yeses, what I mean, or whatever. And it's like a lot of people never had to grow up getting their face kicked in, it's like other than wrestlers or farmers or, it's just a softer world we live in today. So
was it a little scary to leave Vivint and then start door-to-door experts and kind of just say, I'm going to morph into my own thing and create my own opportunity?
Oh yeah. I had to walk away from like millions of dollars. So,
yeah.
It's like,
why'd you do it?
Call me crazy. I just felt inspired. God was like, you need to do this. And I was like, no, I'm sitting cush, you know what I mean? Like I was like the setup really nice. And, I felt like a bigger calling. Like I had made tons of money and, I'm young. I'm probably 27 at the time. And I'm like, I'd already a multimillionaire at 27. And that's what's crazy. Like whether you're selling real estate, you're doing whatever, like you're a carnivore, you can go create whatever income you want. And God was like, you need to go start this thing to go unify, up level, bring honor, integrity. Door-to-door blessed my life so much. And I was like, why don't more people do this? Why don't more people know it exists? Why don't more people look at it as a good thing? And why don't we help each other? And why doesn't there resources for it and training and support for those that want to get in? And so I just saw this big void in this space. And I said, great, I guess I'm the guy to go fill that.
You're going to go organize.
Yeah.
Yeah. At your last summit, D2D Con, how many people showed up?
3,100.
3,100 representing how many different companies?
Probably 900 companies.
900 companies. So you're now, and this organization's only getting bigger and you're pulling people together. Does it turn a little bit into like a little bit of a recruiting mess?
No. So like we literally have people wearing shirts that say recruiting police on it. Because that's why everybody like when I first launched Door-to-Door, everybody's like, that's never going to work. It's just going to be a recruiting fest. Because the problem in this space was everybody's recruiting each other's people and there's no loyalty and everybody's backbiting and all this litigation. And I was like, we need to cut that out.
You have to stand and make them like swear to the creed.
Yeah,
like, I swear that I will not mention my recruiting opportunities to my neighbors during the event.
Yes. And it's like, and I've kicked people out and we've shut things down and we've really maintained this level of respect. And we attract the people that want to play ball like that because we believe in abundance. We believe that there's enough to go around. We believe in teaching right principles. And when everybody understands the mission, and what's funny is because I left and I started this thing, there's quite a few companies that are trying to throw rocks at it and like fight it. And they throw their own events at the same time down the hall for free. And like, you know what I mean? Like just a lot of adversity with it because when something good, this is just advice for anything. When you have a strong mission that promotes good and unity and the right values, adversity is going to kick in and try to kabash however.
Tell me a little bit about all the young bucks that kind of get in this industry, and I think there's some stereotypes associated with it, right? Like
sweet bros.
Yeah, you hear stuff, right?
Yes.
But also just the whole idea of let's make a bunch of money, and then a lot of these young kids, they just blow it.
They're idiots.
Okay, we'll use your word.
I'll use my word.
Yeah, and explain what they're doing.
So I was the #1 rep. I made that year, let's call it 580 grand. And I remember I drove a Kia Optima used hybrid. And one of my reps, I had like a few reps or whatever, he comes and drives up in a new Beamer. And I was like, you made 50 grand. You just bought a BMW? I was like, I drive a Kia, man. But I owned, every year I'd buy more real estate.
Yeah.
So I was the weird one that kept.
Yeah, you are the weird one. You did something that most don't do. I get invited to speak at all of these conferences,
And they don't
and
do
they're like, Kris, inspire them to make good money and then buy real estate. But real estate, so it's really weird. Sales is a short game. Real estate is a long game.
Yes.
And
they
so
can't
the long and the short have a hard time sitting in the same room.
So luckily my dad was a land developer growing up, and I saw him fail because in 2008 everything got swooped.
Wiped out.
And he never held on to assets. So now I have over 100 doors. You know what I mean? Like, and all of that's from door-to-door money that I just kept 1031.
Yep.
And I'd buy a duplex, I'd buy a fourplex, I'd buy another fourplex, I'd buy a threeplex, and then I'd roll that into 56plex, and then I'd buy, you know what I mean? And just had played this appreciating 10 years, 15 years of just rolling it into more. And I look now and I'm like, freak, I'm fine. Like, it's just growing without me doing anything.
Yeah.
And I look at, I go to a friend of mine. Well, no, let's take this text I got literally last week from the guy that recruited me to Vivint, who was my co-manager. He texts me and asks for $1,500. He's still knocking doors in Colorado selling. He's 50. And I'm like, you've been in this now 20 years. You are asking for $1,500. How have you, and I know for a fact when I was working with you, you made over $300,000 every year. How do you not have cash flowing value, net worth set up?
Easy come, easy go, right? Like it's this idea where that's where you see the least amount of financial education, but you see the highest level of greed. I can't delay gratification. I want the new shiny thingy now. And it's like, man, I actually, just as a whole, why is it so hard in general to get people to start thinking ahead instead of just in the moment? To just say, it's that game of like, I'm going to give you one marshmallow right now, but if we wait 10 minutes, I'll give you two. And it's like, if you do that long enough, you're never going to have to work again. Or you could be 50 years old, you know, leaving your family for 5 months out of the year going door to door.
Yeah. And it like, so freedom is a big word in my life, and it's like breaking out of the box. And I think it's just somehow people have been conditioned. Luckily, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family and around real estate with uncles that, dad that. And I think most people, they just, like, they think they've got it made and they're seeking validation because they grew up poor. They grew up kind of in the average. They grew up below average, and they want validation. So they go after the nice car. They go after, I still don't have a nice car. My car's 5 years old. Like, and I don't own a Rolex. I don't wear a watch. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I live how I want to live, but I spend the money on one of things. But today I'm wiring $450,000 on a hard money loan for 60 days. Right after this, like, I can go do things like that and capitalize on certain investments but I think people prioritize looking rich instead of prioritizing net worth. And people's goals in sales are always like, I want to be financially free, but financially free actually starts on an internal, not an external thing.
So I want to talk about this phrase that I've heard you say. You've been talking about carnivores, right? These meat eaters, they go hunt. And you refer to that as a mentality, but I've also heard you talk about the herbivore. Like, you're obviously winning for a reason, and when you're consulting with all these companies, there's a mindset you're teaching them, and I think you have a book coming out on this attitude and mentality. Talk to me a little bit about what it's like to be a sales carnivore.
Yeah, and I think we get domesticated growing up. Unfortunately, the public school system, most jobs, it's the bosses trying to say, follow this little SOP, don't think for yourself, right? And the problem is when you get into sales or entrepreneurship, that switch has to go, oh, I have to think for myself. Like, I have to create survival. I have to go create my own income.
That starts all the way in the school system.
Yes.
With just, this is your homework, do it, shut up, raise your hand if you have to say
This is
something,
how you
don't
need to
go to the
learn.
bathroom unless, and everything's a rule.
Yes, and I look at my 7-year-old. He wears a suit to school every day. He gets called we get calls every day on the dude. He is so unconventional. I'm like, that guy will make so much more money than every one of those stupid school teachers. And it's so hard for me to watch because he's getting told he sucks all the effing time.
Yeah.
And I'm over here like, the dude's gonna be so much like he's the smartest emotionally, smartest socially. You know, you just watch him navigate how he negotiates, and I'm like, damn, you're such a good sales guy. And I'm like, people are going to beat him up so much to where he'll lose confidence in that over the next.
If the social setting wins by saying, what are your reading skills and your
Yes.
reading comprehension and your ability to write and do math, a lot of skills that are great for developing the brain, but don't necessarily correlate.
They won't pay.
Yeah, it doesn't pay.
And so I'm doing my very best to say, how do I anti-domesticate him?
Yeah.
And what's interesting is we're not conscious of what that was for 30 years of that happening to us.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we get into entrepreneurship and sales, and we think that like our brain development is just going to rewind 30 years. And so what a carnivore looks like is somebody that understands nothing happens until you make it happen. And a sale is the lubricant of society, and you go create it. Whether you go knock a door, whether you go create a campaign that creates a lead, you pick up the phone, you make a deal happen, instead of a deal is just going to magically show up in a Stripe and money's coming in. You know what I mean?
I do, because I've been running sales teams for 20 years, and often there's this attitude of like, where's the leads? Everything should be lined up on a silver platter. Make sure it's not too hard. Do you have a system that will do the dialing for me? And I'm like, yeah, so we're definitely not hiring for that mentality. I think that's what you call the herbivores.
Yes.
And so I love this idea of, it's just like, actually, if anything happens, you make it happen.
Make it happen.
And if anything, in any opportunity you have is creating a roadblock for you, instead of perceiving it as a roadblock, then you get creative and say, how do we work around this?
And I remember I was the VP of sales of a solar company right here down the street. Had 100 sales reps, and we ran 60 of them were setters that would create appointments and knock. 40 of them would go to those appointments and close. So kind of a setter-closer model.
Yeah.
So the closers I look at as herbivores. I'm like, great, as long as an appointment is on your calendar, you will show up and you are closed. And they thought they were God's gift to men. They were like, I'm a closer. Like, they were on the high esteem. I had to then one day, after about 18 months of just beating, like, go hunt. If you don't have an appointment on your calendar, what'd you do today? And I was like, this is so dumb. So I have a meeting with all of them. I was like, all right, emergency meeting. In 2 weeks, you setters learn how to close. Closers learn how to effing knock. We're done with this thing. And you're going to either eat what you kill or you're not going to be here. I lost 50 reps over the next 30 days. Wow. And everybody was like, oh
half
my
your
gosh,
team.
Half my team. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, like, what the freak? What are you doing, Sam? It's crazy. Production literally didn't skip a beat. We sold the exact same amount.
Really?
The next month we grew. And I was like, wow, I would way rather work with 50 people that actually want to go find their own deals, go hunt their own shit, instead of bitch about how that guy's setter, one appointment didn't show, and I had to drive 30 minutes and they weren't home. I'm like, well, then you go knock the door and make sure they're effing home. Like, what do you want me to do? And so it was so much complaining, and I realized that they were being victim to somebody else's activity.
Yeah.
Where in today's world, it's your leads are bad. You're not, marketing enough. Spend more money on ad spend, whatever the thing is. And I'm like, how about you pick up your phone and DM and get on social and start going to events and start talking to people and networks and cause things to happen.
Yeah.
That's a carnivore.
I pulled my children 5 years ago out of the school system because my oldest was just entering junior high, and I did not like what I was seeing. I remember what junior high and high, all of that was like. And I remember just talking to my wife and just saying, we've always dreamed of the day when we would privately educate our own kids. I think this is that day. And, when you're a parent of a kid, you're scared to experiment sometimes because you want to know, like, geez, will I wake up a decade from now and just say I did it wrong? I feel pretty happy that 5 years has gone by and my kids love their private education. They actually direct their education. They have to think. They get to do the things they like. And it's really weird what it produces. Like I've got a daughter that's deep into cake decorating, and she can now make these $500 to $1,000 cakes, and she's 14 years old and has like a little cake business. And I've got my son who's 13 and owns beehives. And basically he's multiplying his beehives, and he sells the honey, and he multiplies the beehives, and he does coding on the side. And I'm like, computer science, bro, is right for you. You can make $300,000-$400,000 a year writing code. And each of my kids, it's like, what's your unique path? My oldest daughter is just graduating high school, and for the last 2 years we set her up with a professor of media and gave her an accelerated 2-year degree, if you will, just because that was her passion and what she loved. And it is about breaking the mold. So you don't get a chance to go back in time for a lot of people you're working with, but you got to find a way to break the mold. Does someone have to have the carnivore inside of them, or can you instill it? Nature, nurture?
I think there's a combination of both. I'm grateful. Like, my daughter asked me yesterday, she goes, Dad, why are you making me do the dishes? You're always making me work. Like, every day you have to make me work. And I'm like, so why do I do that? And fortunately, my parents taught me how to work. We had to weed every Saturday for 4 hours. It's like I grew up in a richest micropolitan in America, in Park City, Utah, multi-million-dollar home, but I had to weed every effing Saturday, right? Like, when I wanted to go, my friends all drove nice Tacomas at high school. When they turn 16, they get nice Hummers and Tacomas. My dad's like, you got 2 legs. Go figure out how to get a car. So grateful that it was instilled in me from a young age, where maybe not everybody's parent had that wherewithal and foresight to say, just like you said, it's harder probably to do that to your kid than just, he could have been like, I'll hire a freaking lawnmower and let them mow the lawn because he could afford it. He made me mow the yard, right? Like, it was harder probably temporarily, but he knew the long-term payoff of that. And I think parenting, talking fatherhood, which was yesterday. So like, I think that's a piece that was instilled and helped and nurtured. And I think what behaviors are we rewarding, right?
Yeah.
So like when we're like, wow, he actually went and hustled, are we rewarding the hustle and the carnivore? Or are we rewarding, good job, you closed the deal that I spoon fed you on a silver platter?
Yeah,
like,
I'm wondering if you get nervous when you recruit people that come from W-2, because the school system breeds our W-2ers. And listen, if you're listening and you're a W-2er, I'm not really making fun of you. I'm saying that there's a mindset that says we've got a negotiated salary or bonus for you. And in 90% of all W-2 jobs, as long as you show up and do your work, whether you work hard or whether you don't, you still get a paycheck. And, that's what that breeds, is a lot of obsolescence. It breeds people that aren't thinking, they're not getting creative, they're not A players, they're not driven for more. And I'm kind of curious, when you recruit a W-2er into sales, if you get a little nervous.
I can't manage them. I can't, well, not even into sales, like even just into business. Like my biggest problem is because I've only had 1099, I've never had a W-2 in my life.
Yeah.
It's so hard for me to even understand it. Like when I was an entrepreneur and everybody's talking about benefits and they're talking about employment taxes and shit. And like, I'm getting like letters from the IRS that are like XYZ. I'm like, I don't even know what any of this means. Like this was so foreign language to me because I've always had to pay my own taxes. I've always had to write my own checks. I've always had to, you know what I mean? Like I wrote my own ticket my whole life. And so like a kid comes into my office the other day, he's been with me for 4 years and he's like, hey, how do I go make 120 grand? He's making like 90 grand. And he finds out other employees are making 120. And I was like, first off, don't effing bring up what they're doing. So don't even look at me and ask me like, oh, well, they're making X. That has nothing to do with you. And I kind of get mad at him. And then I looked at him, he's like, and I said, okay, like 12 months from now, and you're in a management position right now, what would your job look like? And he says, well, we'd improve the onboarding thing and we'd do this. And long story short, I looked at him, I said, well, $120,000 employee would never even think like that. They would think like this. I would look for this and I'd run these reports and I'd say how my customer acquisition would go down and I'd look at my retention value and I'd do da. And I was like, that's how somebody should be thinking. You didn't even think of even close to that. So that's why I'm not going to pay you 120 grand. Because he doesn't think like, what problems is the business trying to solve in my role? Why the hell am I even hired?
Yeah.
Does it make sense?
Yeah, just doing a job.
You were doing your job.
Yeah.
And you were told to do this thing. And so you did the thing and you've done great at that. And the fact is I'll pay you your 3 to 5% every year that you should get. But until you start thinking this way, then there's no way I'd pay you randomly a $30,000 raise.
Yeah.
And so I think the problem is most people, when they think they get put into a job, they get an SOP, they get a handbook, they say do this thing, and that takes away the creativity a little bit. So my whole thing is, if you're a W-2, like be thinking of what are the bigger problems that the entrepreneur is dealing with and how do you fix those with them? And I was like, dude, you haven't even been able to track your launch. Like you don't even know what my average customer retained value is.
Yeah.
You're over customer experience. Shouldn't you know that? Oh, well, how do I find that? Well, there's your problem. You don't even know how to find it.
Yeah.
But you didn't even think to ask. You've been here for 4 years. You know what I mean? Like that's
I think what I'm hearing you say is that carnivores, they're hungry.
Yeah, they're hungry.
And they're self-starters, they're self-motivated, and they don't need someone watching over them to get their job done. And they strive for excellence, and they're always pushing the envelope on, hey, if this is our current standard, what do we do to exceed it?
Yes. And they're going to break things. Like if you think of a lion, they're going to not like, oh, let me cutely put everything in order. They're going to be aggressive. They're going to probably piss some people off. But if I'm a carnivore, I'm thinking about the end result more than I am thinking about am I clocking in, clocking out?
Yeah.
Am I thinking about, did I achieve instead of, did I give it my best?
Yeah.
Your best doesn't get, a lion going and hunting is like, but I ran around, I gave it my best. It's like, but did you bring food home?
If not, you're dead.
Yeah, you died. You did not bring food home.
Yeah.
We're all dying.
So it's a little bit survival of the fittest.
Yes, it's kind of like, well, did you do the thing? Did you achieve it? And then so many people are like, well, I tried. And it's like, how many times in employees do you get by with that though? It's like, yeah, but he's almost there. He's kind of done it. Like, then who does? The carnivore jumps in and says, F it, move away. I'll finish the job. You know what I mean? Because that's how they think.
Yeah, we've got this. I think this current generation that's rising up right now might be our first real couch potato generation, where it's like, if like I don't want to get a job, and if I don't, I've got 19 couches that I can sleep on before I figure anything out. And I'm not saying that that's representative of the entire generation, but it's amazing how easy it is in today's society to be lazy and to have everything still somewhat handed to you. And it's interesting that you get out of life what you put in, and this carnivore attitude is definitely a powerful energy of, I manifest my own destiny, and no one does that for you. It's not my government's job. It's not my president's job. It's not my company's job. It's not my parents' job. It's my job to make something of my life.
And I think sales is the coolest, easiest, measurable way to go do that. You know what I mean? Whether you're just getting into sales or you start a company, because it's a very easy thing tracked. Customer service is hard, or media is hard, right? Like, where I think it's an easy way to tangibly think about it. But the second thing is to activate that prey drive, because I think everybody has it in them. We are carnivores. We eat meat. We eat herbs. We're omnivores, really, if we think about it. And if you think of like going back to cavemen, we had to survive, and we were in tribes. We've just become everything softer. It's easier. It's like I can hit a button, my food shows up to my house. You're not like you have to go eat and hunt and things like that. So if you think about it like this, to activate your prey drive, you've got to have anticipation of something, right? So it's like, am I anticipating X? And if I'm not anticipating X, then I'm obviously not activated. Number two would be like somebody else's like competition. So vicarious experience or vicarious people, and you're like, I can beat that. Like, why do people break the pre-Rs on the Olympics all the time? It's like, because they see something, they're like, they did it, I'm going to do it better. And so finding a who, everybody's like Simon Sinek says, start with why, but sometimes like find a who. And when you can compete and you can know that they're kicking your ass, you're like, bet. And that helps activate that. Or it might be, you might be incentive driven. You might be saying, okay, if I just did X, Y, Z and got this, I could get my Lambo or whatever, right? And it's like, you'll do everything laser focused to get that incentive.
Yeah.
So it's like figuring out what your factors are that motivate you might be the place to start to say, how do I activate that? And then build this into a discipline that builds into a character that builds into, this is just how I play.
Yeah, dude, I love it, man. Sam Taggart, thank you so much for being on today. Thank you for sharing some advice. Curious if there's anyone listening today that is like, how do I learn more about this carnivore mindset? How do I learn more about the D2D space? I didn't know that $500,000, $250,000, or $1 million a year jobs actually were out there and paid. And if they want to connect with you, how do they do that?
Hit me up on Instagram at the Sam Taggart, or at D2D Experts. Those are kind of the main two. But I just say hit me up, and or you can just text me 801-819-4535. That's my real cell phone number. I'm not afraid to give it out, because I'm here to help, here to support.
Be a carnivore. Sam, thanks for being here today, and thank you as well for joining us on the Kris Krohn Show. We'll see you next time.